Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of CGI Canada, the Chair of the Board of Directors of the Toronto Board of Trade, Mr. Doug McQuaig.
Thank you, Richard. I was asking for Hockey Night in Canada theme to come out too, and they didn't have it, so they picked that. Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to see everybody here tonight. It's a privilege to have so many influential business leaders of Toronto's business community joining us here tonight. I'd like to thank all of you for supporting the Toronto Board of Trade and our work on behalf of the Toronto region. I also want to thank Carol Wilding, our CEO, all my other fellow board of directors that are here tonight, the advisory board, and the staff for putting on such a great night. Our keynote speaker is Rob McEwen, a true business builder and a community builder. Less than 2 weeks ago, he achieved his greatest business milestone. He successfully convinced shareholders to approve the acquisition of Minera Andes Incorporated by U.S. Gold Corporation. This newly created merged company is now McEwen Mining. And it was funny, in the reception, Rob gave me the first card of the company, and I noticed that it actually has gold on it, and I'm going to have it looked at, see if it's real. The company's shares began trading on the New York and Toronto stock exchanges on Friday. Around the same time, his company also joined the Board of Trade as our new prestige member, and I'll let you judge which is the more important milestone. Before he created the new company, Rob may be best known for his leadership as the chairman and CEO of Gold Corp in the 90s. Rob led the growth of Gold Corp's market cap from $50 million to more than $8 billion, another huge accomplishment. Rob and his wife Cheryl have shared their success. They've donated $50 million to causes encouraging excellence and innovation in healthcare. This includes $20 million to establish the McEwen Center for Regenerative Medicine at the Toronto General Hospital. It's exciting to have an endorsement of our capabilities right here in the Toronto region. His success is recognized by our government and by government leaders. He was appointed to the Order of Canada in 2007, the country's highest civilian honor. He is also an advisor to the federal finance minister. Each summer, the minister hosts a 2-day economic policy retreat. It is attended by some of Canada's best and brightest minds, and Rob is one of those on the minister's invite list. Tonight, I am so glad that he's accepted our invitation to share his success story with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the newest prestige member of the Toronto Board of Trade and the chairman and CEO of McEwen Mining, Mr. Rob McEwen. Rob.
Look at all this gold. Well, thank you very much, Doug. That was a fantastic introduction. My book's turned around. Good evening, Toronto. It is a real treat and honor to be here celebrating the 124th anniversary of the Toronto Board of Trade. And I can say that the welcome has been so warm and welcoming, and when I look at the curtains and the ceiling, it's my color. On this occasion, I have something for you. You may have noticed it on your table already. There's a book, Inflation Nation, and inside the book, you may have already noticed it and tried to spend it. There is a note for $100 trillion. And this was actually in circulation. You may have noticed it was in Zimbabwe. I'll give you a little story. someone in my office gave me a note. It was $100 billion near the end of 2008. And I thought, look at this. I've just become a billionaire. In fact, I've become a centibillionaire. And then I read the note, and at the bottom it said it expired on December 31st, 2008. So you can imagine how this newfound billionaire felt New Year's Day, 2009. Very deflated. But the same person came along and 2 months later gave me a $100 trillion note. And I just wanted to say that you are now a trillionaire. And if you can count the zeros, it's 14 zeros that you're holding. But before you get carried away with thoughts about where you're going to spend this, I want to give you an idea where I'm going tonight. I have 3 themes I'd like to discuss. A discussion of gold and why you should own it. Second, I'd like to talk about my personal quest for gold. And third, Toronto's hidden gold mine. So the most important concept you need to understand about gold is its money. It's the ultimate currency. It cannot be debased by governments. It's recognized around the world, and unfortunately, the dollars that we hold in our pockets, they're not as bad as Zimbabwe, but they're just pieces of paper without any intrinsic value. It is only our confidence in the governments that issue these papers, in their ability to properly manage the economy and the monetary policies that allow us to have the confidence to use euros, pounds, yens, whatever, pesos. If the confidence slips, and as it did with this currency, it becomes no more than a piece of paper, no more than something you just throw away. It's worthless. And so that is monetary policy gone bad. The lack of confidence in paper, or what's called fiat currencies, has led to gold's dramatic rise. Let's suppose for a moment that you bought gold in 2001 instead of leaving your money in the bank. 10 years later, you'd be looking at your gold and it's up over 300%. That's more than 30% a year just leaving your money sitting in gold. Not only did gold outperform the loonie by that amount, it outperformed the dollar by over 500% and all major currencies in the world. It also outperformed every major stock market index in the world. I mean, there is a chart that was in with the book. It's black in color, and you can see some of these pictures. But I highly recommend you read this book. It's a quick read, and it has a very, very powerful message in it that you should all consider. I believe there's a very high probability that what they've outlined in this book, the scenario, will occur. And therefore, I've invested heavily in gold bullion, silver bullion, and gold mining shares. I realize I'm in the minority with this view, but I'm on a mission to provoke all of you to consider this possibility. Even if you assign a very low percentage probability to this economic picture, I suggest you consider buying some gold and silver as a form of insurance to protect some of your assets in the event you were wrong. The reason for the lack of confidence in paper currencies of the developed world is debt. There is simply too much debt. We've gone through 30 and 40 years of rapid accumulation, easier access to credit, and we have accumulated mountains of debt. And at some point, we will not be able to sustain that debt. And it's not one country that is exposed to the debt. It's the entire Western world. It needs to be dealt with. It can't keep expanding. Read Inflation Nation, and they'll tell you a whole lot more that I can't tell you in the next few minutes. In terms of my outlook for gold, I think we're ultimately going to see a price of $5,000 an ounce for gold and $200 for silver. If you look at gold stocks right now, they're underperforming the bullion by a significant margin. Over a 25-year period, they're about 2 standard deviations below the mean, and normally there's a reversion to the mean. Low interest rates mean the opportunity cost is very low to buy gold. Production growth is slow. Central banks are buying for the first time in about 20 years. There are countries out there that want to replace the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world, and 2 of them go by the name of China and Russia. And they're buying gold, but many other central banks are buying gold. And you say, if gold has no role in our monetary system, why are they buying it? Gold, you can buy it in a number of forms. You can buy it in bullion. You can buy it in exchange-traded funds, which are very convenient. You can buy it in stocks. For myself, in this environment of very low interest rates, it's forcing everybody to look at more and more riskier investments, putting their investments, their retirement, their savings at risk. And that's the danger we have in this low interest rate environment. I think that for me, I'm comfortable having bullion, and I live on the high side, what would be considered the high side of the risk curve. And in the environment we're going into, I think more people will find themselves on that high side of the risk curve. Now you have to be prudent and you have to be careful, but don't leave your money in cash. I'd like to move to my second theme, and that's my personal quest for gold. I have 3. It's been an unbelievably exciting rocket ride. During the last 13 years that I ran Gold Corp, our share price grew at a compound annual growth rate in excess of 31%. And I can tell you, that creates a lot of money for shareholders. But I'd like to take you right back to the beginning, to my father, who planned to be a doctor when he returned from World War II. But that didn't happen. He came home at age 20, a paraplegic in an iron lung. The doctors at the Veterans Hospital gave him a bleak picture of the future. He would never get out of bed again, and his legs, to prevent infection, were going to be cut off. He didn't accept that view. He decided he wasn't going to stay in bed for the rest of his life. And the head of physiotherapy at the hospital talks of meeting my father and watching him push himself to his limits until his palms were red, raw, and bleeding. He pushed himself hard, exercising and building his muscles, until one day he was able to stand and walk with the use of crutches. He challenged expectations and won. And from that point on, he was unstoppable. Once he set his mind to a task, it would get done, because no obstacle could deter him. Now, whenever I am facing a large challenge, I draw inspiration from my father's courage and determination. I feel very fortunate to have had such an empowering role model in my life. By the way, the head of physiotherapy that I mentioned was my mother. And she instilled in me a deep sense of curiosity, an enjoyment of reading widely, respect for the elegance of nature's designs, and a love of the game of chess, a game that I believe developed my skills of anticipation and strategic thinking. In June of 1983, Gold Corp Investments was started as a closed-end investment company investing in gold and gold shares. My father and I worked together closely managing this portfolio. It was a very innovative product that gained quick market acceptance. Its popularity spawned 3 competitors. 3 years later, my father died very suddenly. Actually, 2 weeks before Cheryl and I were to be married, and leaving me holding the reins. At this time, our business was challenged by a low gold price, because gold does go up and down. It doesn't go in a straight line up. And all of these funds were trading at significant discounts to their net asset value, some up as high as 50%. Some shareholders were pressing to liquidate the funds and distribute the net assets, and thereby realize 100% on one's money. And that was a conventional way of looking at that situation. I believed there was another way, and that was by merging Goldcorp Investments with an operating mining company, and the assets, those discounted assets, would be revalued at a premium. A year later, shareholders approved the removal of all the investment restrictions, and I sat back and waited for the opportunity I thought would come. 2 years later, it came in the form of a hostile bid for a company I was watching. I came in as a white knight, supporting management with a higher bid, and locked up 51% of the vote and won control of a mining company. I put several directors on the board, and I expected to do the financial architecture while management ran the companies. 4 months down the road, I came to the conclusion that I had the wrong management team in place. I had made a big bet, and I wasn't prepared to lose. I moved to reconstitute the boards, and the directors fought hard to dislodge me for the next 8 months. I was 36, and my opponents were a minimum of 15 years my senior, with lots of connections on the street. I took the advice of a veteran corporate warrior who advised playing speed chess to accelerate my decision-making, and to learn everything I could against my opponents. They lost their bid to stay on the board at the next annual meeting, when I replaced the entire board and stepped in as chairman and CEO. Over the next year, I replaced all but one member of the senior management. My first hire was a well-respected, very skilled CFO, Rolly Francisco. Together, we hired a talented new team of senior management that thought about mining the way I thought about it. For most operators, mining was all about drilling, blasting, and moving rock. For me, there was an extra step, and that was you had to do it and make money. Otherwise, it wasn't worth doing. I found the industry to be full of inertia, slow to accept new ways, wary of adopting outside technology, and very comfortable with the statement, "We've always done it this way." This attitude made the mining industry very fertile ground for innovation and my way of thinking. We succeeded for 2 reasons: the good fortune of making a major discovery and a new management team with a new perspective. In addition, my inexperience allowed me to ask questions that most people in the industry considered out of hand, not relevant, or just plain crazy. Since I didn't grow up in the industry, and I think this is key, I didn't operate with the same unquestioned fundamental assumptions that people who grow up in an industry cherish and hold. Over the next 8 years, we completed 3 corporate restructurings and compressed 5 companies into 1, creating a strong company that has grown into one of the world's largest gold producers. Our Red Lake mine had been running for 45 years, and many of those years it had been starved of capital. As a result, it was tired, high cost, it had difficult, I'll call hostile, union relations. Furthermore, the industry believed it was at the end of its life. Again, to me, the opportunity existed because it had been starved of capital. No money had been spent on improving operations. No money had been spent on exploration, which is the R&D of the mining industry. But the mine next door was rich and prospering, and it was thought to be part of the same ore body. My CFO and I decided to give our exploration department $10 million with the instructions to go drill. 6 weeks later, my VP exploration walked into my office with exciting news. Our geologists had made a very rich discovery. 9 drill holes with an average grade or concentration of gold 30 times what we were mining. This was incredible. Investors loved it, and our stock took off like a rocket. The discovery kept growing, and after a couple of years, we started planning a new mine. And the question was, well, how big should we build this mine? If we keep finding more gold, maybe it should be bigger. If we don't find any more gold, well, then it should be this size. So I asked our geologists, how big is this deposit going to get? And they said, we don't know. I said, how long is it going to take you to find out how big it is? And they said, we don't know. And I didn't like either of those answers. So after a short while of thinking about this problem, we convened a meeting of all of our geologists to address my 2 questions. I asked everyone to come prepared to discuss the ideas that they had not shared and the ideas that their bosses had shot down. As the meeting started, I planned to be an observer, like a fly on the wall. Well, that didn't last very long. 3 minutes into the meeting, I called out timeout, asked the head of exploration to sit down, and then I asked a new geologist to come up and talk about the last idea that his boss had shot down. Suddenly, it was like a bolt of lightning just arced across the room from his boss with the implied message, talk about that and you're fired. I stepped in, looked at the boss, and I said, try that again and you're fired. We need to be talking about all the possibilities, not closing the conversation off. Nervous laughter echoed around the room. The new geologist came forward, presented his ideas, and the discussion just broke loose and went in many directions. At the end of the 2-day session, everybody was energized, filled with new ideas as to where to find more gold. This was great. I walked away wondering, how could we expand on this process? I was thinking about who could we add to the mix to make it more meaningful. Our retired geologists, government geologists, our competitors. And then I went, wait a minute. On every continent, there are similar geological settings. So how do we connect to that expertise? About 6 months later, I found myself at MIT in Boston taking a course on information technologies. I went down there looking for ideas that we could employ at our mine to bring it into the 21st century. On the second day, right after lunch, the professor started talking about Linux and open source code, and it was just bang. The light bulb went off in my mind, and I said, there's the template we've been looking at. We can take all of our data and connect with the expertise of the world and ask, how big will this deposit be? 1 year later, March 2000, the Goldcorp Challenge was launched. We released all of our proprietary geological data spanning 50 years on the hottest gold discovery in the world for free over the internet and asked the world to tell us where we would find the next 6 million ounces of gold and offered prizes totaling $500,000 US. We received 250,000 hits. There were from 50 countries, 1,400 requests for a 400 megabyte file. And we selected 25 semifinalists who generated 110 targets in our mine. 50% of those targets were brand new to us in a mine that's 50 years old, remember. And on 80 percent of those targets we hit. The mining industry didn't know what to think of us. We were violating one of its fundamental assumptions, that you keep your geological data secret. But the web loved it, the stock market loved it. We found our 6 million ounces of gold, and Goldcorp's name spread far beyond the mining industry. Business Week named Goldcorp in 2002 one of the 50 most innovative companies on the web. We're a mining company, not a web-based company. Our story is still being told in a number of best-selling books and is considered one of the first examples of incentivized crowdsourcing, successful examples of incentivized crowdsourcing. So here's the punchline. We spent $1 million and found $3 billion of gold. The takeaway? We questioned the fundamental, unquestioned assumption of an industry and won big. And I believe all of you can do the same thing. I believe every industry can find opportunity by questioning the unquestioned. Furthermore, to do so, you need to get outside perspective. You need to have someone who doesn't know your industry looking at your business. Someone not brought up with the fundamental assumptions of your industry. As we were launching the Goldcorp Challenge, we were coming to the end of a 46-month-long labor strike. During the strike, we stopped producing gold and we accelerated our exploration program. We tore down the old mine and built a state-of-the-art mine. We wired it with fiber optics and installed the first virtual reality lab in the mining industry. When we agreed to settle, the union did something very unusual. It decertified and left a mine after being there for 45 years. It was a first in North American mining history, a first for the United Steelworkers of America. Going on strike, when we went on strike, we were producing annually at this mine 50,000 ounces of gold a year at a cash cost of $360 an ounce. Gold at the time was about $380 an ounce. After the strike was concluded, and we went back into production with our new facilities and our new ore body, we were producing 500,000 ounces of gold, or 10 times more gold, at $60 cost, or 1/6 the cost we were producing before, representing a 60-fold increase in the economics of the project. We were on a roll. We had big plans to attack a major competitor who was 6 times our size. They were just stumbling in the market, they were vulnerable, and we were going to take them out. And then something happened. Something came right out of the blue and changed the game for me. In February of 2002, one of my sisters died, and 4 months later, my mother died. And I met mortality for the first time. And suddenly, I realized I could be next. Out of a family of 6, there was only my younger sister and myself standing. My quest to build was abruptly put on hold as I jumped to embrace those most precious to me. My wife Cheryl, my sons Alex and Sam, my sister Kathy, extended family, and dear friends. As time passed, I began to question what I wanted to do in life, besides a bigger bank account, a bigger company, and a bigger gold mine. I found myself growing frustrated with my board of directors, who became more encumbered with corporate compliance and corporate governance issues. In addition, senior management, at the urging of investment bankers, were anxious to spend our cash hoard on situations that I didn't see value in. With these thoughts in the background, I wondered, what we were going to do to maintain our growth rate. I was prepared to wait for value to surface, but this question was my focus. How do we maintain our growth rate? I had constructed an equation of growth variables, and I looked at every variable, turned them upside down and around, and I concluded I was missing one. And one day, I was walking along a hall, and I passed a mirror. And staring back at me was a variable I hadn't considered. It was me. At that point, I thought about other founders who had stayed too long and watched their share price go down. And as a large shareholder, a lower share price was the last thing that I wanted. I came to the conclusion that I was in the wrong role, that my skills and my current attitude were better suited for startups and turnarounds and not for maintenance or managing a large company. Then I thought, well, frequently when a founder leaves his company, the share price can go up. And I thought, well, if Goldcorp's share price went up 50 cents a share, only 50 cents a share, then the value of my investment would increase by the equivalent of 12 times my annual salary. I thought, well, this is easy to figure out. My interest was in capital appreciation. So I went to the board and gave my resignation. And they didn't want it. They concluded, they conducted a search for my successor, and they weren't successful. They said I must stay. I didn't agree. I saw another company, Wheaton River, that I believed if we combined it with Goldcorp, we could create significant value. I told my shareholders, and we did the deal. And before we did the deal, I told my shareholders to expect a double or a triple in the share price in 12 months after we complete the deal. It took 14 months to get a triple. With the deal done, I stepped down as CEO of Goldcorp, believing that the company would have a great future. Regarding my future, I didn't feel it was a pressing issue. I had exceeded my financial goals. I was secure in my belief that gold was going higher and that I was well positioned to benefit from it. However, it just seems people came through the door and not content to be out of the game for too long. 6 months later, I bought control of a small U.S. company that had property in Nevada, next door to one of the largest gold discoveries in the state. I wanted to try a new model when it came to companies. It represented an evolution of my thinking. I wanted to be a partner with my shareholders. I wanted to have a large investment. The company, U.S. Gold, traded over the counter. It had an $8 million market cap. I bought my first position at 35 cents in August of 2005. We installed a new board, set a new strategic direction, hired management, did a financing at $450 6 months later, listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and then announced a simultaneous takeover of 4 companies, or a bid for that. Within 3 weeks, our share price was 10. Now remember, this started at about 8 months earlier at 35 cents. And I was sort of scratching my head because we hadn't drilled one hole at that point. And just to give you a sense, I mean, the junior mining space is volatile, so you have to be prepared for that. But here's some volatility for you. We went from that high in 2006 down to 50 cents in 2008 when the whole market tanked. And then we recovered to $9.80 early last year. And then at the end of the year, we were down to $3. And now our merger was approved and the new company started, and we're trading at $6 in the space of 4 weeks. I proposed a merger last June, and I own 21% of Minera Andes, 21% of U.S. Gold, and 30% of Minera Andes. And I'm very pleased to say that the merger was completed last week, as Doug had mentioned. We're trading under the name McEwen Mining. We're listed on the New York and Toronto Stock Exchange. We have a market cap of $1.5 billion, and $80 million cash, no debt. I own 25% of the company. My cost base is $110 million, and I don't take a salary. I'm going to make money the same way my shareholders do. That is through a higher share price. That's the different model I was talking about earlier on. So I'd now like to move to my third theme, and that is Toronto's hidden gold mine. And it relates to a discovery that Cheryl and I have made, and we want to share it with you. As you may recall, my mother and sister died in 2002. Due to their illnesses, we spent a lot of time in the hospitals. We had the opportunity to observe at close range the enormous stress and strain that our healthcare system is under, and it appeared to us that it was ill-prepared and likely to be overwhelmed by the surge in demand by the retiring baby boom. We wanted to employ our life's energy, money in the bank, and search for an alternative, a way to alleviate the mounting pressure in our system. Business and Mother Nature had been kind to us. As such, our financial needs had been met and more. We decided it was a good time to give back in a much bigger way than before. In 2003, we provided the first of several donations to establish the McEwen Center for Regenerative Medicine at the University Health Network, which is Toronto General, Toronto Western, Princess Margaret. Regenerative medicine is a broad definition of innovative medical research and therapies that holds vast promise of regenerating damaged tissues and organs by stimulating the body's own repair mechanisms. Stem cells play an important role in this research. It took several years to find the right individual to lead the center, and in 2006, Dr. Gordon Keller became the head of the center and set out to build the future of medicine. The past 5 years have been a remarkable adventure. It's been magical, it's been rewarding, it's been inspirational, and we've been fully committed. And those words just scratch the surface of the experience. When I think of my life, an image comes to mind. I see myself running down a long hall towards a door, which is my goal. And when we made our gifts, suddenly new doors appeared along the wall. And upon opening the first door, we entered a brand new world, one we'd never seen before, full of smart, talented individuals that were working to find a cure, that were working to keep all of us healthy. The second door exposed us to a new variety of experiences, emotions, situations, and people that our paths never would have crossed without going through that door. It has been intensely rewarding, interesting, and fun. Through these doors, I got to see medical research. And the more I saw of it, the more I realized it looked a lot like my own business of exploration and mining. There was little communication between specialized areas. And researchers didn't have delivery dates. Medical research looks inside rather than outside. Sound familiar? Both are heavily regulated, have long lead times, are expensive, with small probability of success. But I can tell you, the reward for success is mind-boggling. To me, this presented an opportunity to innovate through an open forum, just as we had done with the Goldcorp Challenge. We have our 15 senior McEwen Center scientists meet several times a year to describe their work and highlight the areas they are particularly excited by. From there, those brainstorming sessions moved on to identify work that had a high probability of having a near-term clinical application. This line of research is considered too risky to secure traditional grant funding. So we set up a system to fund these projects, which we call our Accelerated Discovery Awards, and the progress has been remarkable. Our dollars are not directed towards incremental steps, but to research that might create the next big leap forward. Let me show you what we're doing.
I think the excitement comes from the fact that these discoveries have unfolded in the last few years. The ability to take a human stem cell and really direct its fate in a petri dish, tell it to make what we want, is new and exciting. And it enables us to do so many things that we couldn't do even 2 or 3 years ago.
What we can do is actually make a cartilage pellet in a dish. It's actually very visible, and when we put this slide on the microscope, we can actually look at the tissue from the side. The top layer, as you can see, is very smooth. All the cells are sort of lined up very nicely. So basically what we've done in a dish is recapitulate what the top of your knee looks like. And now this tissue can be used in models of osteoarthritis. We can test drugs on it without having to test it on people. And we're just that much closer to transplanting this into patients who really, really need a replacement tissue.
The program that April is working on in the lab is really a game changer. I think in the near future we'll be able to take cartilage grown in the lab, take it back into patients at the time of surgery and repair cartilage that's been damaged and prevent the need for joint replacement surgery.
And so what we can see on the monitor now is clusters containing human heart cells, and that's why they're contracting, they're moving. And these clusters contain approximately 50%, or approximately half the cells in each cluster are the beating cells, and the remaining cells are very similar to the remaining cells, the other cells we have in our heart. That's cells that form blood vessels and a type of cell that helps provide structure for the heart. This was made by our colleagues in Germany. We sent them those clusters of human heart cells. They took them apart. They cast a mold with the cells. The posts are moving only because of this piece of heart tissue is pulling them together. This is the type of tissue you could imagine we're going to use for transplantation in the future.
Now is really the point in time where we're going to make the transition from doing mechanical treatments, which are bypasses or stents, to doing biologic treatments, where we use the vast and really unlimited potential of a patient's own cells to help them repair the damage that's been caused by cardiovascular disease.
So what we've developed here is a system where you can keep the lung alive outside the body for an extended period of time. Now we can actually work on it and facilitate repair and regeneration of the organ. So imagine, if you will, the opportunity to take a donor lung that's injured, diagnose what's wrong with it, and repair it and create a donor lung that is better than the lung we found. We've developed this technique here, and we've translated that into clinical practice next door at Toronto General Hospital, where we are actually saving lives. I think one of the very important things that's happening here in the McEwen Centre is that Rob and Cheryl are pushing us to go the next step, not only to do exciting science, to translate into saving lives in patients, but really to look at the opportunities to protect our intellectual property and derive commercial benefit from it that we will roll back into supporting research. It's really the tip of the iceberg of regenerative medicine.
The field is remarkable. I would have never guessed we'd be where we are now 4 or 5 years ago. There's a wealth of talent in the city. There's resources and a real opportunity to build on something that I think is going to make a difference.
Thank you. I hope you agree. This is powerful, exciting, game-changing. The delivery of healthcare is being challenged increasingly by increasing demands and rapidly escalating costs. Part of the solution will come from research, as you've seen there. But there are also structural features in our system which I believe are undermining our ability to establish a biotech industry in this country. Our ability to commercialize on our advances and breakthroughs, our lack of ability, is costing us dearly. Because I've seen occasions where we're selling our intellectual capital that is paid for by very large tax dollars for pennies on the dollar to foreign concerns. It might be similar to drawers of water and hewers of wood. Toronto is in a research leadership position today. If we push hard, we can maintain this leadership and build it through intelligent commercialization. New treatments, new devices, new drugs, new companies and industries can emerge, producing huge benefits in health and the well-being of Canadians and the world. We believe this could be the world's biggest gold mine, right here in Toronto. You can be part of it. You can be part of the discovery, the excitement, and the reward. There is gold up and down University Avenue. It's intellectual gold, capable of driving world-changing industries. I invite you to learn more about this remarkable world of regenerative medicine. In the far end of the room, there are two tables from UHN, and they're wearing big buttons, so at the Rogers reception, you might want to seek them out. They're buttons like stem cells are hot and researchers are sexy. But if you can't find them, you could visit our website or book a tour if you'd like to learn more. There's a card on the table, a discovery card on the table. But I want to leave you with one message, and that is we need your interest, your insights, your business acumen, your shared vision and enthusiasm for Toronto and Canada to maintain its leadership position. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make it happen in Toronto. Thank you very much. Thank you, Board of Trade. Thank you, Carol. Thank you for all the gold. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful evening, and glad to be part of it.
Rob, well done. Thank you. Couldn't have imagined a more appropriate presentation this evening. If you remember earlier on, I began the evening by saying that one of the things I truly enjoy about this particular evening is the fact that it provides us with an opportunity to be exposed to great Canadians, great business builders, great community builders, and give us the opportunity to be inspired as we enter a new year. I think, Rob, you've raised the bar. Thank you on behalf of all of us in the room.